Welcome to Adapted, the show where we discuss adaptations of various forms. My name is Tom, and with me is...
Uh,
the chair and secretary of the Swedish Academy, Carl David af Versen, had this to say about the 1905 Nobel laureate, Henryk Sienkiewicz. And he said this about his 1890 book, Without Dogma. Quote, "With an art hardly surpassing elsewhere, Without Dogma presents to us the type of a worldly man, a religious and moral skeptic, who becomes unproductive because of his morbid need for self-analysis. Through his perpetual indecision, he prevents his own happiness, sacrificing that of others, and finally succumbs." Plazowski, the main character in that book, is a highly gifted man, but he lacks moral bones, so to speak. He is without dogma. He is hyper-aesthetic and extremely sophisticated, but the sophistication cannot replace his lack of faith and spontaneity. The author shows us with insight how in a soul that had once been Christian, the cult of beauty is insufficient to fill the void left by the loss of religious sentiment. End quote.
who is this Alf Fierson?
Alf Versen was the
Yeah,
head
no,
of
I
this.
know. Yeah, he was the Nobel Prize head of the Nobel Prize Literature Committee, right? Oh,
Yeah,
God, he sounds insufferable.
maybe, but I think normally, I mean, we've quoted him before on this, but I think he's kind of getting at something that's true
He's getting
of
at something here, but it's just insufferably phrased.
Quavadas.
It's so smug, right? It just strikes me as very smug.
Yeah, I mean, he strikes me as a very smug person.
Yeah, I'm like that quote is just irritating. I don't know what it irks me.
Yeah, I think though it's an analysis that's correct, at
He's
least about
correct.
this
I don't
book.
think it's wrong about Quo Vadis, but it's just. Mm.
Okay, fair enough. Um, but I quoted that because, irritating or not, normally Averson is his analysis of the authors that he appoints as Nobel laureates tend to be a little bit more, look how beautiful he describes the culture of Norway, or something like that. Well, here you actually have an analysis that I think gets out the heart of why this man's work, at least the work we've read for this week, is somewhat interesting. And Henryk Sienkiewicz, he was born May 5th, 1846, in what today was Poland, but then it was part of the Russian Empire. And he was brought up in a family of poverty-stricken nobles. So it was a noble household. They still have titles, but they were completely poor. He started his writing life as a journalist while he was finishing college. He eventually published his first novel, In Vain, in 1872, and he then, after, soon completed his first trilogy by the late 1870s. At that point, with his first trilogy, he became a major figure in the Warsaw literary world. With a famous Polish actress and her husband, he traveled to America and published
Oh, I
about it.
didn't know he ever came to America.
He did. He published about his experiences here, which his letters about America were very popular back in Poland.
I'm going to take a guess he was not particularly complimentary.
I think he liked America.
Oh, interesting.
I
Wouldn't have
think
thought
he
that.
did. I didn't read the letters, but I got a feeling he did because he was here for a while and he lived in Anaheim. So he was a California person for a long period of time.
Well, that's very like his Czesław Milosz, his fellow countryman moved to
Yeah,
California. So
yeah,
his fellow Nobel Prize countryman lived in California for most of his life. So I will give it's like Czesław Milosz. The Poles apparently Polish Nobel Prize winners
they like
apparently
California.
like California.
Yeah, I think he liked America. But anyway, he returned to Warsaw, married in 1881, lost his wife to tuberculosis in 1885, retired from newspaper publishing, and began to work on his later trilogy, which started with a very famous book, or very famous in his canon anyway, a novel titled With Fire and Sword. And this trilogy was a
I'm
historical epic.
holding up my
Ah,
I'm showing my child, as many people have, my childhood copy of With Fire and Sword.
that's a lovely looking brick right
It
there.
is. I mean, this is this is a massive book, and this I read this as a kid. I so yes, With Fire and Sword is an excellent book.
Yeah, tracks the historical fictitious account of Poland in the mid 17th century and apparently to the end of the 18th century is what this trilogy does. He was also a big political advocate for Polish autonomy. Bjornson vibes are coming back here. He was
Which is interesting that they're kind of picking these kind of slightly political writers, even at this point.
It's odd. They're slightly political writers. They're not politically progressive by the time they receive the award.
Well, they're also not politically, even if their politics are, they're nationalist, but they're not, many oftentimes this particular time, especially in Eastern Europe, nationalism gets mixed in with Marxism. They are not, these sort of, none of these guys seem to be Marxist in their nationalism.
They seem to be kind of, I guess what you would call like Kantian nationalists, where there should be like
Romantic
yeah,
nationalists. They're like
yeah,
romantic nationalists. I would
yeah,
say they're
German.
Goethean nationalists. Almost
Uh,
this sort of like, I feel like they got at this romantic
this is sort of
sensibility.
romantic sensibility. I think I think Kant is working in that tradition in the sense of he sees the nation as this necessary thing, but it should be a sort of constitutional type thing, a constitutional monarchy. I get a feeling that's the type of thing the Nobel Prize Committee liked. I don't think they liked you being overly political, but nationalism seems to be very important to them. And yeah, so and he was part of that. He was very much Sienkiewicz was a part of that. He worked to publish advocacy for Polish autonomy. He published against. He really did not want Germany to have Poland. He was a little better with Russia. He thought Poland should have autonomy like within a Russian sphere, but German advances on Polish territory he really did not like. In February of 1895, he started the book that would become the novel Quo Vadis, which was published serially in the Polish Gazette and other periodicals starting in March of that year. He completed the book by the following March of 1896. His later writing was not as well received. He attempted to start another trilogy in 1906, but abandoned the project after strong negative feedback. So he wrote a pair of novels, one for children and teenagers that was actually fairly well received, titled In Deserts and Wilderness. He died in 1916. His funeral was well attended, and it included a speech by the Pope at the time, Benedict XV. So apparently he was very well known.
Didn't remember there was a Benedict the 15th. When was he Pope?
He was Pope very briefly, I think in the not even, I think like
So I was like, I don't know. I remember.
1906 to like 1919. It was
So
very
this was that
brief.
period when they were like, we had a big Pope in Leo the 13th. Now we have a mediocre Pope in Benedict the
Yeah,
15th.
he's interesting because you see he was the one who had to deal with World War One.
Yeah, but it's shocking. I literally, if you'd asked me if there was a Benedict in the 20th century, I would have said no.
And Benedict XV, apparently went back and forth trying to negotiate a sort of peace between France and Germany. And basically what ended up happening was Germany said, you come off as anti-German, and France said, you come off as anti-French in your negotiations. And so no one would listen
That's
to
not a
him.
surprise. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
any sort of the like any attempted neutrality in that
at time, yeah.
time was not coming across well.
So he was very much an anti-war pope, but I think he also was maybe not the best at diplomacy, though maybe the hill was
I don't think
too.
anyone was doing in
Yeah,
1916. I don't
yeah, I
think
don't think
anyone was
anybody
doing very
was
much.
fixing this problem. Yeah,
No.
um,
When we get to those novels, that'll be an interesting conversation.
that'll be an interesting
What
time.
what World War One did to Europe and Western civilization will be an interesting question.
Yeah, yeah, seeing the after effect is going to be fascinating. But to finish this up here, Sienkiewicz always saw his work, both artistic and humanitarian, as an extension of the need for Polish independence, which makes this novel kind of interesting because I don't exactly see it in it. But
It
anyway,
doesn't fit.
do it. Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
think so.
it doesn't work.
Yeah,
But that's fine. He might
yeah,
have he might have just needed
felt
to,
that. Needed to say
Shakespeare got to
that.
get paid, son, and he might have just needed a serialized novel to
To get it
get to
get it
pay the
going.
bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At his Nobel Prize banquet speech, he said, nations are represented by their poets and their writers in the open competition for the Nobel Prize. Consequently, the award of the prize by the Academy glorifies not only the author, but the people whose son he is, and it bears witness that the nation has a share in the universal achievement, that its efforts are fruitful, and that it has the right to live for the profit of mankind. This homage has been rendered not to me, for the Polish soil is fertile and does not lack better writers than me, but to the Polish achievement, the Polish genius. End quote. So
I mean,
again,
that's a good quote. That's
yeah,
a really, really, really good quote. That's a
mhm,
man who gets it.
yeah,
He gets what the Nobel Prize was very early. No, none of these other writers we've done, no one else is saying anything close to that.
yeah, and
Right?
that's.
Sully Prudhomme is not saying that.
I
You
didn't
know,
read his banquet speech, but
but
maybe.
none of them are coming anywhere close to
Yeah,
that. None of
mm,
like there is no way, having read some of their writings, and we've done now a bunch of these early Nobel Prize winners. They are not saying that. They are not coming up with that idea. There's just no way. Their work is not showing that type of awareness.
yeah. I mean, Bjornson is saying it, though. I think to a degree, his work is not.
Not that well.
Yeah, he's not as good a writer. And that's the thing. He's
Yeah.
also not interested in these kind of grand epics of the territory. I mean, Sienkiewicz is the Polish historical novelist of has anybody topped him in Polish historical novelists? I mean, I might be the wrong person to ask, but that's
I
his
mean
deep
the
concern.
national. I mean, Czesław Miłosz is the poet.
Who does
As
that?
far
Yeah.
as who does that, I don't. I mean, I mean, my knowledge of Polish history isn't great, but it's okay. He's got some competitors in terms of poetry. I don't think there's a novelist of the same quality. But there are poets who would rival him. There are certainly poets, and Czesław Miłosz being the most prominent, but there are other poets who would certainly be there. I don't think there's a novelist in the same vein.
Yeah, I think Bjornson is interested in something of the same project. And I think
But he's
Bjornson,
not saying it that forcefully from anything I've seen from Bjornson. I don't remember ever hearing
um,
anything where he's saying it this forcefully,
well,
that eloquently.
well, not that eloquently, but he is saying it pretty forcefully. He was pretty interested in the freedom of Norway. The
Okay.
problem is, Norway gets its freedom in 1905 and he completely turns tail. He goes, it's maybe not the right time for Norway's freedom. So that's his younger work.
Didn't he write the words of the national anthem?
He also wrote the words of the national anthem for Norway. So yeah, I think Bjornson was doing it, and I think his peasant novels, he was doing it in a smaller, more intimate way. He was interested in the peasants, I think, because he was interested in Norway, the land, and he kind of saw the peasants as an extension of the land, and therefore he is singing the song of the land, so to speak. Sienkiewicz is interested in a different dimension. He is interested in the epic. He is interested in the long story of a people that is taking into consideration not necessarily the lowest, but the knights, the nobles. You would know better than me. You've read his Polish epic. And I think there's a difference here. Part of the other difference is Sienkiewicz is just better than Bjornson. He's a better
Yeah,
writer.
I mean,
So he's
I mean, I just, this seems like the opportunity to say this. Like, so we've done a number of these Nobel Prize winners. We've generally admitted that they are not so far of a great caliber. This is the first one that I would personally put in a category of great. Like I like Heinrich. It's also, to be fair, he's the only one of these writers so far we've done that I've actually read before we've done this, sort of project. And so I really like Sienkiewicz. I hadn't read Quo Vadis, but I've read his earlier works, the With Fire and Sword, and and I read it when I was fairly young. I was like 11 or 12 when I read it, and I really, really like his writing. So he's in this category of, okay, now we're finally at a writer that I might consider great. This is a very, very good writer who is worth our attention. And the other writers are sort of interesting. I'm glad the Nobel Prize sort of kept their memory in the sense that it's nice to read them. They're fun. We would never read them if they hadn't. Sienkiewicz, I think I would still read even if he hadn't won the Nobel Prize. And the fact that he did makes it much more common and accessible. So that might be the big difference here. This is our first great Nobel Prize writer.
He's the first one, certainly, of outstanding quality. I mean, I am with you. I think the book has a lot to offer. I think it has a lot of subtlety. I think it explores ideas in pretty complex ways and pretty complex ideas. You're not getting that really from Bjornson. You're not getting that from Eshigure, who's
Shikara.
yeah, not who's as seems as kind of simple as they come. No offense, fellow. Maybe his
No, I don't
mathematical
know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some of his other 200 plays are better, but like
It's
considering his greatest play we read and watched the movie, it's not stunning. Um Quo Vadis is not as good as with Fire and Sword. And again, this is me thinking back almost 30 years, but it's not as good as with Fire and Sword, but it's still a darn good book. It's still a
Mhm.
darn good book.
Yes, and I think that what's appealing to me about this book is, and we should probably give a little bit of a plot summary of what's going on in Quo Vadis before we
Yeah,
get too much more
you
into.
do that.
Yeah, so
That's a difficult summary to
yeah,
do.
it's between 600 and 700 pages. So we're in the time of Nero. We have Marcus Vinicius, who's a, a patrician, so an upper class person who has fallen in love with a woman who's, we call her a hostage. That sort of sounds a little more demeaning than it was at that time. Basically, she was the negotiation with the Romans from the Lydians, who are people who lived in Turkey at that time. And so she's Lydia, as they call her, and very creative name. And well, it's her nickname from her location. And so Marcus Vinicius falls in love with her. He's an impulsive, brutal patrician, as is everybody in Rome. He is under Roman rule, and so he goes to Petronius, his uncle, to help him get the girl. Petronius does. She rejects him and runs away. He goes after her. He's injured, and he discovers that she's a Christian. She's part of a growing Christian sect in Rome. Meanwhile, we have and they're falling in love, and he's finding out about her and her Christianity, and slowly going through a sort of personal conversion. We also, on the other end, have Petronius, who is dealing with the psychopathic and pseudo artist Nero the Emperor, who has
The
just
artist Nero is a
the
great
artist
touch. Like
Nero.
it's just like it's just the it's a really it's a touch that makes you appreciate like a little bit of history. Like these are I'm not a huge historical fiction fan because I find that it's sort of very odd in terms of if you really know the history, it tends to feel like, oh, gosh, this is like it's like a person intruding on my space. Like you know what I mean? Like it feels like this isn't, you're simplifying it and you're missing stuff, and it always feels weird if you really know it. And if you don't know it, it also, it again, it just has this feeling of like, I feel like you're oversimplifying and missing it. And it does that. But the touch of Nero in this book is nice. Like I feel like I'm like, yeah, I think I do actually get the Nero figure a bit better of what was really going on with this. And you hear he's insane, and you hear of his sort of the fiddling while Rome burned kind of thing. But you kind of this, even if it's not 100% accurate, does give you a good feel for what the bizarre psychopathic uncertainty of that man was.
Yeah, he is obsessed with producing art, but he also, and I think this is something actually the movie misses, he
Movie misses a
loves,
lot.
and misses a lot to be fair, even though I like the work on Nero that one actor
The
did.
one actor does a good job with Nero. There are complaints I have with it, but it's just well, we'll get into it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Nero is he I remember there's a description of Hannibal Lecter in the book The Silence of the Lambs, not in the movie, where Hannibal Lecter at one point he
I don't know what that's perfect. I don't
yeah,
even know exactly what it is, but it's gonna be good. Like this is a
yeah.
great analogy, and it works
It's
so well.
but Hannibal Lecter at one point is admiring the woman whose child has been kidnapped by Buffalo Bill. He's admiring her clothes. And at one point he makes a comment about, well, did you breastfeed your daughter? And she goes, yes, because she wants to know, because Hannibal Lecter knows who Buffalo Bill is. And she wants him to tell her. And he goes, when your daughter's on the slab, he goes, it made your nipples hard, right? And she says, yes, it did. And he goes, when your daughter's on the slab, will you still feel it? And
That's in the
why
movie.
that's in the movie, yeah, but why the description that's not, which is it's Anthony Hopkins plays it is the reason why he says this is he needs to drink in people's pain, like he needs that nourishment, and so he does that not because he gets anything like physically or materially out of it. He just needs the pain. It sort of sustains him, and that's what I see in Nero here. Nero is somebody who loves to produce art, but he just loves intense cruelty because it nourishes him.
Yeah, he has the idea of him being a Hannibal Lecter type of figure
Hmm.
who has unlimited power
Hmm.
is a really clever way to look at him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's not as intelligent. I mean, he's stupid. He's not a good
He's
artist.
stupid,
That's the difference
but
between him and
yeah,
Lecter. But
I
he,
get it. But this idea of a figure, but I mean, Lecter's cruelty is based in a similar vein, in this sort of, I am a genius, I am so smart, I can do what I want, and that gives me rights. And Nero's cruelty isn't based in the fact that he's Caesar. That would almost be understandable. If his cruelty was based in, I am the ruler of the world, I can do what I want, would be more comprehensible, I think, and sort of more human almost, and more less insane than I am an artist, and therefore I can do whatever I want to produce art. That's that's a weird mentality. That's a psychopathic mentality. I rule the world, I can do what I want. Yes, it's not very nice, but it's accurate.
mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
but I am the greatest artist who has ever lived. I can do what I want is similar to Hannibal Lecter's I am a genius. I am the smartest person who's ever lived. I can do what I want. Those are psychopathic. Those are divorced from reality. If you're Caesar and you say I can do what I want. It doesn't matter. That's real. These other things aren't, and that's why I think it's a great take.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's so anyway, regardless of plot, there's Petronius, there's Marcus, there's Lydia, there's the growing affection and conversion of Marcus, and then you have in the background probably everybody's favorite character, Petronius, who's a kind of debonair,
I like
astute.
Chilo in the book.
Yeah,
Chilo's my favorite.
kind
Well,
of.
let's leave
Mm.
Chilo because Chilo's not
He's not a
directly related to
huge
this.
part. Yeah. I mean, if we do all the plot, we're gonna that's
Yeah,
just
but
gonna be the podcast. But
well, that's I mean. So the rest of the plot is,
what you think would happen, right?
they fall in love. He eventually converts to Christianity. The Nero decides to burn down Rome in order that because he says I want to be able to see a city burning so I can complete
He
my
needs a
poem
model.
about Troy.
Hmm.
So he says if Homer saw Troy burn and was able to write his poetry, I need to see Rome burn in order to write my poetry. So he orders the burning of Rome to write his great poem. It goes very badly. He blames the Christians in order to save his own self, and then the Christians are all murdered, and it sort of goes from there. So that's the general plot of it, right? But the character we haven't mentioned, so there's these main characters, but the character I think is the most interesting character in the novel is Chilo. So Chilo is this Greek philosopher, old Greek philosopher who basically is philosopher, quote unquote.
He's a sophist.
He's
I would,
he's a sophist,
yeah,
yes.
he's basically a sophist. I mean, he takes credit for being a. What does he say? He says
But
he's
he
a
doesn't even teach sophistry.
Yeah,
He
he doesn't
doesn't
teach
teach anything.
anything. He just says things.
He just says things and he uses it. He's a con artist. And so he uses his this thing and he's the one who tracks the Christians and helps Vinidius find Lydia and he sort of goes amongst the Christians and he sort of he pretends to be converted and then he but he really isn't. But at certain times, it kind of seems like he is, and he's betrayed by Vinidius, and he's the character who undergoes the most actual change, right? I mean, even Vinidius's uh, conversion, I honestly, I never was quite convinced of it. But he Chilo seems to undergo the most interesting stuff. He's the character that reminds me the most. If you've read Silence by Endo, there's a character who's very much like Chilo in Endo. This is where I'm like, he must have read Quo Vadis, and he clearly took this character from this Chilo character. There's too many similarities for it to not be at least inspired. And so I assume it's the like, great artists are inspired, or good artists are inspired, great artists steal. This strikes me as a great artist just stealing a character and putting him in Japan. And it works pretty well. So that character is also very interesting in the book. The book just has a lot of interesting characters. It's incredibly dense. There's a lot of detail, sometimes a bit too like, and let me tell you about the Praetorian Guard for a page. I'm like, ah, you spent a lot of time researching this, didn't you, Heinrich? And so he does that a little bit, but there's a lot going on in terms of the plot, the intricacies of the plot, the novel, the characters. There's a lot of good stuff in this novel.
Yeah, and I want to start then with the kind of triangulation, I guess, of Petronius, and we could talk about Kylo or Chilo,
I thought it was Chilo. I don't know.
Chilo. Yeah, I thought it was Kylo with a hard K, but whatever. Chilo, Kylo, Petronius, Vincinius, Nero, and I think one of the big,
Kilo would actually make more sense if it's Greek. That's
yeah,
probably because it's supposed to be the Greek key. Funny is
mm,
Kilo. You're right. Funny is Kilo because he's
yeah,
Greek. So it's Kilo. We'll go with Kilo.
Kilo. Okay.
Yeah.
And anyway, to start with the kind of thing that I found interesting in this was this sort of idea of a love of art and a love of beauty, and how inept that love ends up being, or incomplete that love ends up being. One thing that happens to Petronius at the end of the book is eventually his enemies at court get the best of him, and he's going to be killed, so he commits suicide and has this sort of grand party where he slowly bleeds out with Ursa, his
Eunice.
Eunice, excuse me, his lady friend, and he writes a letter before that to Vincinius, and Vincinius has become a Christian.
Vinidius,
It's Vinidius?
isn't it?
It's Vinicius, right? Vincinius?
This is the problem with
Marcus.
Mar
Yeah.
Marcus. Gotta go with
Marcus
Marcus.
is Marcus has converted and whatnot. And he writes and he's like, I'm sorry, I can't
Vinidius. It's Vinidius.
with a D?
The T.
Oh, I have Vinicius with a
Oh
C.
gosh, so we have different translations. We have different translate. Oh gosh, the Polish. We have to take we have to take Latin into Polish and then out of Polish into English.
Oh goodness.
Oh gosh, that must be a terrible
Marcus, we're
translation.
gonna
That
be
poor translation. That poor translator.
Oh, that poor fellow. So anyway, Marcus,
Okay,
as we're
we're
gonna
gonna go
call
with
him.
Marcus. Sorry. Okay.
Um,
That's what I'm like. It definitely was not what you're saying.
because the initial he's supposed to be the son of an actual person. He's not real, but Marcus Vincinius Vincinius was a real
Yep.
person. He was a consul, right? Um,
Well, so yeah, he was a consul. Yeah, and so was Petronius. Petronius is an
yeah,
actual.
but Petronius
Um,
is a real person. This Marcus is not. But
no,
anyway, regardless.
but Petronius, that actually is how. Well, there's two. There's potentially two Petroniuses. There's a Petronius, and people they tend to just get they've been conflated by time because they're just two Petroniuses, and we'd like to think they're the same person. But there's a Petronius who was a member of Nero's court, who was his arbiter of elegance, his master of elegance, and he did die supposedly the way that he did. Tacitus tells the story about how he committed suicide at a dinner party elegantly because he insisted on elegance. There's also Petronius who wrote a very early novel, the Satyricon, and it is potentially possible that they were the same person. It it's it is a novel that in some ways deals with bad taste. so it's a novel that could have been written by a person who was obsessed with good taste. It makes a good story that they're the same person, and so they're often assumed to be the same person. But that is at least a historical person who did die the way that he is said to die in Nero's court.
And they're the same person in this book,
Yes, they
for
are the
sure.
same person in this book. Yes.
Satyricon was Petronius at the beginning of the book takes credit for the Satyricon, which otherwise had been published anonymously. But so anyway, so he writes a letter back and basically says, "I'm sorry, I can't love ugly people. Like, first of all, I can't love ugly people who are ugly morally. Like, I can't love Nero. You want me to love Nero and Titulinus? I can't. They're terrible. But also, I can't love physically ugly people. He talks about, he lists out like people look like this. I can't, like, you're,
I can't be a Christian. I can't love a person who has a mole. Like they have a
yeah,
mole. Like you think he says that exactly. He's like,
yeah,
they have a mole. They're ugly. I can't
yeah.
love them. That's no. That's
Yeah, and he mentions like I have two philosophers. And I wrote them down, Pyrrho and Anacreon. Who Pyrrho was like a
I didn't know
great,
they were. Yeah.
yeah. So I had to look them up. I didn't know them off the top of my head, but he was kind of a great skeptic who saw things as not being true or false. That everything is undifferent and unstable, so therefore we can't trust opinions because everything is coming with bias. And so basically, you have to treat everything as you can't trust any opinion. And so therefore, we shouldn't adopt an opinion about anything. We should just
He's a cynic, essentially.
he's a cynic. And then Anacreon was a poet, a Greek poet who basically celebrated Dionysus and Artemis and celebrated drinking and orgies. And so basically that I think that gets Petronius pretty
Pretty
well.
close. Yep.
Yeah, he doesn't have any kind of trust in anything, and he absolutely only believes in beauty. And even though he recognizes Jesus as he calls him the greatest of gods, which is in
He
some
says
way,
he's yeah, and he recognizes him as beautiful,
mhm,
right? He says that this is a beautiful idea.
yeah, but he can't love it, right? He can't experience that type of love that Lydia and Vincinius or Lydia and Marcus experience.
We can go whatever.
Whatever, they'll figure it out. Audience, you'll figure it out.
Unfortunately, Polish transliteration of Latin into English apparently are we have two different
Translations.
translations,
But
transliterations.
yeah. But but he can't do that. He can't get there. And it's odd because I find him to be an incredibly charismatic person, and this is one of the
I think
disappointments.
you're meant to. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think you're
yeah.
meant to.
Hmm.
And you kind of hope that he will, the way that the novel is it's Chris like this is not it's not Christian propaganda, but it is unapologetically Christian. Which is a bit uncomfortable to a modern taste, right? There's a bit of a sense of you're pushing it, bud. But I don't think it would have come across that way at the time, and it still is fairly effective. You do root, and I think you're meant to root for him to convert to Christianity. That's what the novel wants you to do. It wants you to think that he will get there. But he can't because and this is what I find this is the importance I think of the novel is that and you and I have talked about this in terms of beauty, and maybe we'll get to that a little bit. Like beauty as a philosophical concept, I think is really interesting. But the problem is Petronius doesn't love, and that is the constant emphasis of this novel is that Christianity is about love. If you don't love, you aren't a Christian. And that's actually there's a really great moment, which I really like. And I think it speaks a lot to a modern audience, which is there's one character, I don't remember his name, who constantly berates everyone who just says,
Oh
like, that's a sin.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
sin.
Hmm.
That's a sin. And when Lydia, and such a great, it's a long passage and it's really powerful. When Lydia goes to him and says she's in love with Marcus, and it says he's angry. He's angry because he wanted her to be like a statue, like a
Crispus.
yeah, this sort of and there is this sort of sense of she's going to be perfect. And everything is a Crispus, is that his name? And he says everything's going to be perfect and she's going to be my model of Christian virtue. And he's so angry that she expresses love towards a man that he's like, this is a sin. Don't ever acknowledge it. And he rips her to shreds. and it's either Paul or Peter. Paul and Peter are characters because this is sort of fan fiction to some extent. So, Paul, the writer of the epistles, and Peter, the saint, the first pope, are all in this. And I think it's one of them. It's either Peter or Paul says, no, it's not a sin. You can love. Like, that's what the point is. If you love this man, love him, but love him chastely, love him virtuously, etc. And but the best moment of all is there's this great moment when Crispus, when they're in the sort of equivalent of the Colosseum, it's not actually the Colosseum, but they're the equivalent there, this big stadium that's made to kill all of them, and they're being crucified, I think.
Mhm.
And he is standing there yelling at people as they're being crucified, saying, God hates you all, and you need, don't assume that just because you're dying here means you're going to go to heaven. And Peter basically says, Stop. This is wrong. You need to stop now. It's not, and he says, But I have hated all sins. And Peter says to him, That was not what God, Jesus Christ taught. He taught love. And Crispus says, Oh my gosh, I failed. I have failed my, and then, again, it's like it's fairly well presented in the novel. He says, I failed. I have spent my whole life hating sin when I should have loved. And Peter says, but you know it now, and it's okay. If you die, you're saved. And he dies and he's saved, clearly. But it's a really great moment when that's the strongest, that's the most direct example of this phenomenon that he's exploring throughout this book. But it's that love is what makes you a good Christian. Love is what makes you a good person. You have to love other people, not statues, not paintings, not hating sin, not loving poetry. You have to love other people. And if you do that, that is what saves you in the end. And that is sort of the argument I think here that goes with that's what saves Marcus. He loves a person. And that leads to, because he loves a person, it leads to his gradual transition into Christianity. And it leads to his gradual transition towards sort of love in general. But love of paintings, love of food, love of art, those things aren't bad. They can be beautiful. They can lead you there, but they have to lead you in the right direction. If they don't, they're false. They're bad markers on the road. And so that's, I think, the really interesting theme that he explores here. And that's what I think is going on with a lot of these ideas. You must love other people. If you don't, it's hollow, it's fake, it's not there. And that's Petronius's although Petronius does love Eunice.
He does. She's also incredibly beautiful, right? That
But
that's
that's not a problem.
that's
Again,
no.
beauty, this is the idea. Beauty is good. Beautiful things, beautiful movies, beautiful art, beautiful poetry, beautiful things should inspire us. They should lead us
They
to
should
love,
lead
but
into
they should
it's
lead us to love other things.
yeah. It's this sort of it's a love that should then it's like a tributary that should feed into the greater river
Yes.
of divine love, which the Greek word for this is agape, but I mean we don't have to do that. We could just say like a divine love or erotic love, which is something like a love of beauty. I think is in the same genre or on a spectrum with erotic love, right? It's a erotic love is just a manifestation of
Is
that
that
love of beauty.
Eros? Which one is that?
Yeah, that would be Eros. Yeah, and then if you want to do this, the C.S. Lewis complete the square, right? It's Eros, Agape, Storge, and Philia, and then there's a bunch of other
I
ones.
remembered Philia. I didn't remember Storge.
Storge
These,
is
this
friendly
is
love.
the
Yeah.
Greeks have a lot of words for
No, I'm
love.
sorry. Philia is friendly love. Storge is
Love of country,
parents'
isn't it?
love of child.
I thought it was nation. Isn't there one for nation?
There might be, but
I thought there was a love of nation too. The Greeks had a lot of words for love.
yeah.
And so their idea was different types of love lead to other types of love.
I think there's some sort of argument that philia could be interpreted as a love of nation. It's love of friends or love of people. It could be a love of people. I've also read interpretations that say that that's false. That's off. That you have to look for something else. That's not what people mean. But whatever.
But there is an idea here that there are different types of love. And that's really what this novel is exploring.
Yeah.
There's different types of love. Hate never leads to salvation. I think that's the point here. Hate. So, in some ways, Crispus, before he realizes love, is worse off than Nero in some ways. Nero at least loves art or loves himself to some
Mhm,
extent.
mhm.
And this guy is almost worse off because he can't until he sort of realizes it. Um, and I think that's important. That this is a not, love is such like a elusive, fluffy term,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's why I'm always
Love is the new is the new saying, the new axiom
yeah.
that drives me
What was
crazy.
the what was it?
Oh, the new saying, it's love is love is love. That's the new bumper sticker, that thing
That
that
doesn't surprise me.
people
Yeah,
stick on
yeah,
their lawn. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's sort of like, well, I mean, the Greeks would disagree because they got like six words for it, so they're
Yeah.
not like this is where it's like, no,
Which
love is
one
not.
is which one? Just
Which one? Agape is not, eros, and there is sort of this idea, and I really like that they have all these words for it. And I think this novel is, even though it's a Latin novel, is exploring this philosophical Greek concept of different types of love. And it's not other some loves are better than other loves, but love in general leads you in a higher direction if you follow, as you said, like if you follow the tributaries of the river, it leads you into greater and greater types of love. Hate will never bring you there, but if you follow them and you don't limit them, you can find your way to a certain way. And that's sort of Petronius's problem to some extent, that he only loves a certain type of love, mostly eros, I would say.
yeah. Yeah, he is um interested in beautiful things. It's not even sexual almost, right? Because the way, I mean,
Not
not
just
necessarily.
sexual. No, it's
No,
not just sexual.
it's
No,
often not. It's he loves just. I think he loves Marcus in part because Marcus is kind of an ideal Roman. He
yeah,
is beautiful. He's strong. He's commanding. He's kind of imbibed the Roman ethos Marcus has, and I think that ends up being, like you're saying, Petronius's problem and why he's so central. And I think why he's the bookend. He's the first
yeah.
voice we get, and he's not exactly the last because we get Nero's death and then an epilogue after.
That always feels just like he needed to do that because his publishers told him he needed to do
Yeah,
that.
you need
That
to let
feels
us know
like,
what happened to
yeah,
Nero, which is
that
fine.
feels, which is fine. That feels like a serializer publisher being like, you can't leave it there. You
yeah.
gotta kill off
We have to
Nero.
know what happened. You can't Saruman it. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah. So so I think that's why Marcus opens and closes it because the Marcus to a certain extent is the greatest lack of love because he has such capacity for a certain type of love. He has the greatest capacity. He is the
You Petronius. You said Marcus.
excuse me,
Petronius.
Petronius. Petronius is the greatest. I mean, his last name is actually Arbiter, right? Because I mean, that's his
Yes.
family name, but it becomes sort of a joke that he can look at and judge art in a sophisticated way. He can produce it in a sophisticated way, and his sensibility extends to the way he dresses, the food he eats, and even how he observes and looks at people. He has a sort of a sort of incredible appetite that isn't cruel, right? His appetites are not cruel at all. Even the way he treats slaves it's fairly benign compared to the norm. And yet
Compared to the norm, he's a bit callous. Like there's a bit of, he's a stoic to some extent. There's this
yeah,
idea
oh,
of
he is.
he displays virtue without love.
Yeah,
And virtue without love is
not good enough.
hollow, not
Yeah,
good enough. Like just behaving properly isn't good enough. It can lead you to be, if you have virtues, it can lead you in the right direction. But just having, this is the having one virtue. If you only have one virtue, you have none of them. Or if you have all the virtues but one, you have none of them. This is Cicero, I think. Kikero, as we've said, but we're not going to go. We're not going to be pedantic. But so this is a Ciceronian idea, and it finds its way into Thomas Aquinas, and this idea that you have to have all the virtues in order to be sort of a perfect human being. Now, no one does that, but you have to strive towards it. And he has sort of developed really one or two, and he's failed on the others, and that leaves him less of a person than he should be.
and there's a bit of a trap, I think, in the book because he is so appealing,
Yeah.
and he's so appealing to the audience, and he's our introduction to everything. He's really the person who explains Nero's court to us through other conversations, and he's the last voice we hear. And he's probably the most sincere throughout the entire book. I mean,
Yeah.
Marcus is a little too emotional to be duplicitous, I think, but but it's hard to it's
He's a
hard
bit
to like
naive.
he's
He's just kind of
naive and
naive.
he's also incredibly angry. Like he is kind of distant from the audience early on. I think
Yeah,
because
I would agree with that. Yeah.
he's so possessed with kind of appetite that he's kind of ceases to be a person. He seems more like a beast, and he's kind
Yeah,
of
I would agree with
ugly
that.
to us.
He's got like a Sherlock Holmes feel,
Yeah,
right? Like, he's got
yeah.
this sort of like,
He's the role I would want to play if I was cast
yeah,
on this. I would love to play Petronius. I'm probably too. No, actually, I'm the right age. I think Petronius died. If it's this Petronius,
you
like
could do Petronius
38,
easily. Yeah.
39, the real Petronius. So I'm about there. I mean, I'm older than that, but I think, whatever. Like that's the role you'd want to play. He's just such a, he's so sophisticated. He welcomes everyone. He knows how to handle every situation, mostly. He charms even Nero in a way that people think, oh, there's no way he's getting away with this. And he just does. And he does it without giving a damn.
I mean, he says it over and over again. Like there's the greatest sequence of that is when Nero's daughter has died, infant daughter has died. I mean, and there's a whole sequence where Nero is bewailing, and he sort of blames Petronius because he blames that Petronius had brought a witch in who had betrayed the daughter and made her die, and this whole thing. And so he's basically yelling at Petronius, and Petronius walks up, and basically Petronius says, "Well." And it shows his, this sort of has that sort of divine third person narrator of the 19th century, which just drops into everyone's heads, and it drops into Petronius' head, and basically it says, well, either he's gonna succeed here or he fails, and if he fails, well, he'll die, and he already knows that, and if he succeeds, well, then it solves the problem. So he walks up to Nero, and he doesn't say a word, and he takes a scarf off of Nero's head and wraps it around his mouth, and he says. You may murder all of Rome if you wish out of your grief, but you must save your voice, because your voice is how you sing to us, and you cannot deprive the world of your voice. So I will cover your mouth with a scarf so that you will stop yelling your grief, so that that will save us your singing voice. And Petronius basically and Nero weeps and says, "You're the only one who thought of this." And it's just, and you're like, that is really good, man. Like, and he does this over and over and over again. And people like he's almost got this sort of like hard-boiled detective kind of thing. He just knows the thing. He's gonna give it a shot. He's gonna try every. He's gonna. He's the expert who navigates the worst waters. And yeah, you really like him. Um,
And I think there's a bit of a trap in it,
yes, I
right?
agree.
I think there's a bit
You're
of a
meant to love him, but he's not what you're meant to emulate. You have to go beyond Petronius.
Yeah, Petronius is the thing you have to leave behind. And even
Yeah.
his kind of glorious suicide, which is, what a way to go, right? He's going to get a party all night and as you bleed out, it's a pretty rock star way to die.
Well, Petronius is the guide in the same way that Virgil guides Dante through the first circles. He's the earthly figure of earthly beauty who guides you forward through these things, but eventually you have to leave him behind and move on to the next type of love. And that's what Petronius kind of functions here
Hmm.
as, I think, in the novel. Now,
Yeah.
I just want to point out these are conversations we did not even remotely have with any of our any of
Yeah,
our
yeah,
previous. You can't. They
yeah.
don't have this depth. This is why this guy
The
is great.
land is beautiful, and the
Yeah, the land
peasants
is
are
beautiful.
beautiful in the land, and we should give the land to the people and the
Yeah.
peasants.
And this is why this is a great author. This is a guy who's worth your time, even if he didn't win the Nobel Prize. This is a person who's worth your time. And Quo Vadis is a great book. I think With Fire and Sword is a better book. I haven't even finished the rest of his trilogy because when I was a kid, I remember reading With Fire and Sword and I couldn't get the other books. None of the libraries had them. I still remember sitting there in like those old school typing computers at the library trying to find Deluge, and you can't find him. This guy is a great writer. He's a really, really good writer who's worth your time. That's the beauty of this guy, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Don't have these conversations with the other guy. You
Yeah,
can't.
and the writing is also it's it's very active. It's very punchy. It moves very
Yeah.
well. There is a lot of brutality in it. The execution of the Christians goes on for about 10
It just
chapters.
goes on a bit much.
It
Yeah.
goes on a bit much. But it's still, in spite of that, fairly well choreographed, kind of know where everybody is, you know the kind of progression of things. It it is got that kind of grand epic feel. I don't know that modern audiences probably revisit
No,
this because it's earnest. It
it is
earnestly,
earnestly Christian and earnestly Catholic.
yeah.
It's Polish. It's earnestly Catholic. It's not a style that a modern audience is ready for. With Fire and Sword is a bit bigger. It's got a sort of a Lord of the Rings in Poland feel, from what I remember of it. It's big, it's large. There's a giant who's made a vow that he's going to chop off seven people's head with one swipe of the sword. Like it's 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 a great historic epic novel that not to say that but it's also like 1,500 pages in the first volume. So this is not
Paid by the word.
it's paid by the word, but it's also like when the longest book a lot of people have read is like, Addie LaRue. This is just pushing it. I mean, this is just enormous. And Quo Vadis is shorter, but it's just too earnest. It wears its shirt on its sleeve, and I'm not sure it's aged well, even if it is good.
Yeah, its ironies, I think, are in what is appealing about the Roman world. Which, again,
Yeah.
I think why I focus on Petronius is, I would say the master trope in reading. If you want to read well, look for irony, and I don't mean sarcasm. I mean the the twist or the incommensurabilities in books, things that don't connect together, or gaps that you can't fill, or traps you fall into, right? Why am I falling into this
Yeah,
trap?
the aporias. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think aporia is a type of irony that is really important in reading. And I think the trap or here is Petronius. I think he is so appealing, and yet everything we learn that is good is in contrast to Petronius. Petronius is not really that different from Nero in what he values. He's
Yeah.
different from Nero in what he does with his values and how he pursues them. But if you ask Petronius what he thinks in terms of what is good or bad, it's not going to be that different from Nero. It's just going to be smarter, right? That's all it is. And
I
maybe
mean, there's an argument that basically Petronius that all of these problems that Nero creates are egged on ultimately by Petronius, or they're enabled, to use sort of a modern word. They're enabled by Petronius. Petronius enables them.
he enables them because he doesn't think, first of all, he doesn't think, what else am I going to do? But also, he has this kind of skeptical philosophy of nothing really matters.
Yeah.
Right? This is the problem with beauty, is that if all you do is worship beauty, ultimately nothing really matters because there isn't really anything transcendental about material beauty. Like everything there is going to go away.
Maybe I would say beauty is a transcendental in itself, but that's a different conversation for a different day. We're not going to settle that now.
Do you think Petronius thinks that? That the beauty Petronius is looking for, does he see it as transcendental?
Beauty is a transcendental. Beauty is something that is beyond it points to a transcend. I think it is a transcendental and it points to other transcendentals in the sense that but it's like many, so transcendental by that I mean a thing that is ultimately sort of divine in origin, I guess I would say. So like good
Ideal, you could say.
ideal, like it owes its origins in a platonic sense to an ideal beyond the physical world. So something that is good, like good is a transcendental. It points to something greater than itself beyond its physical actual existence, right? But I think something that's just, that's a
It does the same
transcendental.
thing.
If we see a just action, it points to something beyond the action itself. I think if you see something beautiful, it actually does point to something beyond itself. It points actually to, it's ultimately divine if we're going to follow this into its ultimate thing here. But the problem is, like any transcendental, if it's not properly oriented, it can lead in the wrong direction. Justice in the wrong direction becomes, Madame, is it Lafarge? I always forget. Defarge in Tale of Two Cities.
Oh, okay. I don't
You know,
remember. Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
it's Defarge. That's justice perverted. It is a transcendental, but you've taken it too far and you're following it to too much of an extreme. magnanimity could be considered a transcendental, but if you take it too far, you become Great Gatsby. Meekness could be, if you're meek, maybe that's transcendental, but if you follow it too far, you become Blanche Dubois. All of these things can be taken too far if they're not countered by other virtues and transcendentals. Beauty is in the same category, I think. You follow it too far, it leads you to the Petronius problem. It leads you to worship of the thing in itself. Meekness by itself cannot be a path. It has to be followed by other things. Justice by itself cannot be a path. Mercy by itself cannot be a path. All of these things have to be tempered by other transcendentals and virtues, or they lead to nothing. And beauty, I think, is a transcendental. It points beyond itself, but when you follow it only on an earthly plane or with no other bearings, it leads to a Petronius who just falls flat and kills himself at a dinner. And that's the sad thing. You have to follow others with it, or
No,
you.
I agree with that. I don't think Petronius thinks there's a transcendental.
Oh no, no, no,
That's
no,
what
no,
I'm
no,
saying. I
no.
think
Oh,
Petronius
oh,
is
okay.
situating beauty.
Well,
I think
then my
this is the
monologue,
difference.
then my monologue
That
is
was a very
ruined.
good monologue. I like that. It was very well stated. Good examples. Yeah. No, I'm saying like that's the difference between Vincinius or Marcus and Petronius is both Petronius and Nero do not see the transcendental signifier. They cannot move
Yes,
beyond the material world. And for
yes,
Nero is just kind of too self-indulgent to realize this. He doesn't, he's just, the world is him. He's divinity. He is, a sort of counter to Christ in the sense of he is divinity that doesn't offer a transcendence. It only offers kind of the material reality. But Petronius is fine with that, I think. I think Petronius is fine with this is all we get, so let's find the best of everything and surround ourselves with it. And that
yeah.
doesn't mean we don't treat people kindly, because he's fairly kind to people, even though he enables quite a lot of murder. Um,
Well, this is it's a bit of like solipsism here.
yeah,
Yeah, that's how I see the world is how the world is.
yeah, but I think the trap of this book, what makes this book great, is the fact that when you look at it, Petronius and Nero don't have that different a worldview. The
No.
only difference is basically an evaluation of taste.
Well, Petronius loves. I think that's the difference. Petronius actually
Okay.
loves outside of himself. That's the difference. Because Petronius loves Eunice. Eunice is his sort of slave that he falls in love with, and Petronius does love. Nero never loves. That's the difference between the two of them. And I think you hope that if Petronius doesn't kill himself, you hope that his love will lead further. But
He'll
he
go to
can't.
Sicily and become a
That he'll
Christian.
go to Sicily and become a Christian. That's probably what would have happened if he does, and that's what the novel wants you to hope for him. And that's the big difference between Nero and Petronius. Is Petronius does love. That I think is the big difference. That's
Okay.
that's where his character differentiates himself from Nero. But you're right, their worldviews are essentially the same. I mean, we've talked an enormous amount about this novel. This is why I'm really glad we're spending time on this one. Like we spent an enormous time. We have to do something with the movie.
Right. So transitioning into the movie, it is a movie. Um,
They made it.
they made it.
It was very
So it was
popular.
made in 1951. Mervyn LeRoy made it. It was made for $7 million, which at the time was the most expensive film ever. It was the Avatar of its time, and it also was the
I didn't
largest.
know that.
Yeah, it was the largest moneymaker for MGM since Gone with the Wind. So at least for MGM, it was the biggest moneymaker since 1939, 1940. And it was immensely successful. It had a few Oscar nominations. I don't
At
remember
eight, I think.
eight now. Yeah, and it's
Because the guy who
I
played Petronius was nominated, the guy who played Nero was nominated. I think it's like a Best Picture nomination. It's got a lot.
yeah. So it was immensely critically and commercially very, very successful. It seems to have been, why was it made at this time is always the a kind of question I'm interested in, just because the date of the publication, the date of the award, and the date of the film tend to differ so much. It seems to be part of this trend of the 1950s and early 1960s of Bible epics.
Yeah.
Bible and
This
big,
is it. This is I think this is a Iron Curtain thing. if
Do
I had
you?
to take a
Oh,
guess. Oh yeah, I think this is what the West does. We do we're a Christian society. I think there's a huge amount of that. I mean,
oh.
this is when the, one nation, if you're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, it was, one nation indivisible with liberty and justice. They add the under God during this period. There's a reason the under God gets added to the Pledge of Allegiance during this period. This is a Soviet differentiator.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, and this seems to be towards the beginning of that trend, right? If you're looking at kind of the big Bible movies of the time,
And the fact that they're
51's.
picking a Polish novel for this
Mhm.
purpose, I think is not
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I think this is a very strong
Mhm.
middle finger to Soviet
Okay, that makes a lot of
culture.
sense to me. Yeah, because it's towards the beginning of that trend. You have Samson and Delilah and David and Bathsheba are 49 and 51. Um, Ben-Hur isn't a 59, I believe. And then,
Which is shocking because it's the same stupid movie,
yeah, they're
right?
very, very similar. Very, very similar movies. Then Cleopatra killed the trend by, regardless of what you think about the Soviets, if you lose that much
Well,
money,
yeah, I did. Well, Cleopatra is a different story. That's
entirely.
that's not a Bible,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cleopatra's,
But Cleopatra killed this. It's still, I think,
it killed the sword and what is it? Sword
Sandal.
and sandals? Is that what they
Yeah.
called it?
Yeah, all of these book movies tend to be Bible and Sword and Sandal. They tend to overlap. And I think once, because you also have Helen of Troy was moved from 1956, that was a big success. But I think once Cleopatra came along, they were like, we
It
can't
killed
make
it. Yeah,
movies
yeah.
like this anymore. Yeah, this movie was number one for 11 weeks at the box office and made on a budget of 7 million, made a profit of 5.4 million. Um,
Doesn't seem amazing, but compared to something like Avatar, which was probably made for like 200 million and made a billion. But either way,
500 million. Avatar I thought was
was it that
500.
expensive?
I thought it
God,
was. I thought it was like that was the whole thing. I think it made like $2 billion or
what a
something.
stupid. Anyway,
Anyway.
I mean, the movie, you know,
Yeah,
the movie's a movie.
yeah, they make some choices with it.
I mean, they cut. I mean, it's not a bad script adaptation in the sense that there's a lot of stuff in the movie, in the book that they gotta, they completely cut, Kilo. He shows up
He's
for about
one
10
scene.
seconds
Yeah.
and then he's gone, which is a shame thematically considering he's one of the more interesting characters. And but they sort of, I guess they gotta water down some of these more complicated themes that we were just talking about. So it's not Nero trying to write an epic poem that, whatever. It's just like Nero doesn't like the smell of Rome, and he's crazy, so he burns it to build a new city. Okay, you got some of it. You got the Cliff Notes. You got the Cliff Notes version of what's going on,
He
and
does sing
same.
a song.
He does sing a song,
Mm.
and the story of Petronius is there, and the story of Marcus is there, and Lygia is there. No one really undergoes very much interesting change.
Lygia is played by Deborah Keir is like dull as a she's a real plank of wood in
Well,
this.
so is Marcus. I mean,
Marcus is really good.
they all suffer from the mostly they suffer from the earnest acting, which I mean, I know this was sort of a bit of like 40s and 50s acting, but it just comes across as like really bad, where it's like, hey lady, hey, hello ma'am, I am a Roman soldier. Your ideas are foreign to me, and they must be wrong, therefore. I am from Rome. It just sort of, but he literally says like that almost equivalent thing. It's like, who do you think you are? You're a slave. I am a man. You should do what I say. And it's like in that tone even. And then it's sort
Yeah.
of followed by the like Deborah Kerr being like, but all of us are children of God,
Oh,
and
children
we
of
must. And I'm like, oh my God, like
he's
what?
yeah, I think it's what Robert Young, is that his name, who
I don't
plays
even know.
Marcus. He's miscast. I mean, the man's 40 years old. I Marcus strikes me as like
20.
25 maybe at the
Yeah,
oldest, right? Because
2025. Yeah.
he's led an expedition, so he's got to have some age. But like this man is 40 years old. I'm like, he seems old, and I looked it up. He's 39, 40 at this time.
Yeah, but what are you gonna do? You're not gonna put James Dean out there.
But I mean, the
Like,
problem though with having this guy is looking older is he seems kind of mature, and he acts fairly maturely in this.
yeah.
What you get with Marcus when Lydia's gone is you just see what's interesting about Marcus is he's appetite converted into agape. That's his thing. Marcus is appetite. He just wants Lydia, and he's like, I will whip her nearly to death and then sleep with her, then sell her to my slave. But right now, I will burn down Rome just to have her. Like, you get this sense of just,
That's in the book, yeah.
yeah,
But
unbridled appetite. And it's the appetite, it's a young man. This is,
yeah,
I
I would agree with
recognize,
that, yes.
like this is something that I probably was more likely to feel when I was in my 20s and not now when I'm in my 40s. Having a and the script adjusts for this, but having an older actor and an actor who looks older and plays the role older, you don't have that kind of conversion. Instead, you have a guy who's like, I don't know anything about Christianity. Seems kind of weird. You know
Let me
what?
smile at Peter while he says it and kind of be like, and then there's going to be dreamy music while he stares, and that's going to tell me he converted
Yeah,
to
there's no.
Christianity. It's very dreamy.
It's
It's
very
like,
like, at one point he's like, Lydia just goes, "Okay, I'll marry you." I'm not quite
for
sure what
no, I have
changed,
no reason,
right?
no
And
idea
he's like,
why.
"Okay, we'll put up a cross. That's fine. Like
I
we
mean, that
can."
sequence is kind of funny.
It's
That sequence kind of works. Like, yeah, sure, I'll put up a big cross. You do whatever you want. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that sounds great. You want to have a pool? We'll do a pool. You like roses? I'll tear up the rhododendrons. Like, that's clearly his idea
His
here is
idea.
like,
She seems okay with it at first. She's like, okay, and then then he gets angry at her for some reason that I couldn't tell, and then breaks her cross in half and stuff. And so you get this kind of, first of all, the actions don't seem to come from previous circumstances.
no,
They just sort of
it's
fall out of the sky.
for a
And
3 hour long movie, it feels like it cut a lot of scenes.
yeah. Yeah, it doesn't feel like the dominoes are falling. And it seems miscast. And the poor guy who plays Petronius is he's not, I mean, he's fine, but he's not particularly like I don't want to be that guy.
No, no,
I
no,
don't
no.
he comes off as
Comes off as an accountant.
yeah, yeah.
He's got a little bit of like the Shawshank Redemption guy.
Oh,
I don't remember his name. Andy Dufresne.
yeah.
He's got a bit of an Andy Dufresne quality, which is like, I mean,
Tim
it's nice.
Robbins. Tim
Tim
Robbins.
Robbins. It's nice to see an accountant do well, but but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not what he's supposed to be.
Yeah, he's not like the great aesthete. I mean, we do have moments where he corrects Nero and whatnot, but
But barely.
barely. You don't get the sense of this is a man who is manipulating the court to stay in power, and look how smoothly he does that.
No.
We get the sense of a guy who's like, he's there, he says the right thing sometimes. Oh, he's getting critical of Nero almost immediately when Nero starts
Yeah.
to do nonsense, which is that kind of throws off the whole film because once you have a Petronius who is willing to be critical of Nero pretty quickly in the story, I think you've lost the thread, right? You've turned it into a melodrama.
Yeah, this is melodrama. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what prevents this thing from being great. And if you have a Marcus who really isn't driven by appetite, but just sort of he's in love with her. Like he seems authentically in love with her pretty quickly in this movie and not just
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
horny, then you also really don't the arc of development from I love you to I will convert to you is something people do in the
It's a pretty
suburbs.
mild, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pretty mild, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, your parents seem to think this is important. We can
Let's
get
do
married in a
pre-Cana, I
church. We can
guess.
do yeah, we can do pre-Cana. It's fine. I
Uh,
understand. Like it's, we'll we'll get this done.
yeah.
And it has a that's a really good observation. It's very modern feel
Yeah.
to his take on it. And it's sort of that's not what is in the novel. And it just feels fake in the movie. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to take everything that's in the novel and put it on the screen. You can't. But it just feels like a betrayal or a fake version of it. Um, and there's a
And
lot of that. I
there's a
mean,
lot of that.
there's just, I mean, why don't we talk about Nero and then let's talk about the bull?
Yes. So there's Nero. Nero is actually played well, I would say. That is, I can't remember that actor's name, but he's a two-time Oscar winner. He and was nominated for this. He plays Nero not as a vision Nero, but I sort of enjoyed his portrayal. He plays Nero as sort of like a um like
He's like a petulant boy.
child. Yeah, he's a little
Yeah.
boy. He's like a
Yeah.
little stupid boy who nobody can say no to.
You know what he reminds me of like the Danny's gonna is it no Anthony's gonna send you to the cornfield. Like he's got that Twilight Zone kind of. Is it Anthony? I
Oh,
think it's
oh yeah, I know what you're
doesn't
talking
he?
about. Yeah, he does
Is
kind
it
of. Yeah.
Anthony? He's got that feel of like
Mhm.
I'm gonna send you to the cornfield. Like you did a good thing, Anthony. You know, like it's got
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
feel.
Yeah,
It's
the one
got that.
that Spielberg remade that, I think,
God, I didn't see that, but
with
I think it's Anthony. I think it's Anthony, but I can't
with Bart
remember. Is it?
Simpson.
Oh, I mean that's a really good one. Actually, the Bart Simpson one is really good.
No,
But
no,
I
no.
mean
The
that.
remake has the woman who plays Bart Simpson in it.
Oh God, I thought you meant that there's a Treehouse of Horror one where they have
Oh,
that
they
and
do that?
Bart's the little boy.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Mm.
and it's it's but that's the feeling you get here. I don't remember what the character's name is in the Twilight Zone episode, but that's the idea you get here. Is this is that in real life in the sense that obviously this guy has a totally warped vision of reality, but he kind of gets to tell people that that is, and people will say that it's true. And so it's really interesting. So he has this petulant boy kind of quality. Now, again, by modern standard, it has this sort of like it always reminds me some of his acting, which again, it reminds me of James Dean and the like, you're tearing me apart, like from Rebel Without a Cause. He has that kind of quality to some
But
of his
I think it
acting.
works here
But
because that's what Nero
I was gonna
was.
say, but it
He's a ham.
works.
I mean, Nero is always
Yeah.
acting, and he's always
Yeah.
doing bad acting. And I think I get the impression from that what this performance is getting at that sort of
Yeah.
he's not actually feeling anything he's saying. He's just, you know, until
And
the
that's
end.
why it works fairly well because it's ham-fisted and it's a bit caricatured, but that's probably it seems like what he was doing. It's a little over the top, but it's the best performance probably in this
In the movie,
movie.
yeah.
Um
And
and
it's a little different from the book because I don't quite get the same sense of cruelty. Like Nero is
no,
obsessively cruel in the book. He seems to
as you said, he seems to
fixate it.
want to see pain because that
Mhm.
allows him, he doesn't want to feel pain, but he wants to see pain so he can write about pain. That seems to be his idea. Um,
Here
and
it's
it,
not really the case, I don't think. I think he's just spoiled.
yeah, and so therefore it's less effective, but it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like we're kind of looking for something to praise in a movie that's lacking things to praise. It kind of goes, it's very talky, and I don't mind talky movies, but this is a very talky movie. And it seems to have realized that about three-quarters of the way through when they have like a random scene with him like trying to ride from like Actium up to Rome with like
Yeah. What the
some
hell was
random
that?
dude attacking him on
Why
a
was he
chariot.
attacking him?
No
I
idea.
have
I have
no
no
idea.
idea. And it was a long sequence. And I went, well, apparently they thought people would be bored here because they put a very long sequence of this dude riding from one city to another with a random chariot attacking him while he whips him and they fight. And I'm like, no idea
And
why you were fighting him.
yeah, I
No
couldn't
idea.
figure it out. And it's you could also see, however they shot it, they cut it and then put the outline
Yeah.
after the fact, and you could see the outlining of the figures in the charioteer on the screen. You could actually see the line
Yeah, but
around
that's,
them.
I
But just
mean,
whatever. It's a
that's
50s.
poor special effects,
Yeah,
that's fine. I mean,
yeah.
it's.
But in a scene where you don't know what the hell, why it's going on.
I mean, that's
It's
kind of what you're going to stare at because you
yeah,
have no idea what's going on with the
yeah.
scene.
Why they're there. Mhm.
And they have a lot of just things that didn't feel like they fit. And then there's the so in the book, we should say, in the book, when they finally get to the, all the Christians have been murdered and all this kind of stuff, and so Lydia has her great her bodyguard, we'll call him. His name is Ursus, and he's like literally meant to be like the strongest man alive. He's just like this giant amongst men, and he follows Lydia around and protects her everywhere. He's murdered people, and he always feels bad because he's a Christian. He's not supposed to murder people, um and they've promised that, they've kept them alive for the last event of the Colosseum or whatever for the games. And in the book, she comes out tied to the horns of a bull. And so the bull is going to charge at, and Ursus is sent out there. And so Ursus originally says, well, I'm willing to die. I will die the most horrific death. But when he sees Lydia, whom he loves with, agape, no, not agape, I guess we could say
Uh,
philios,
Philia, yeah.
philia,
He
not
he loves
eros.
non-romantically.
Yeah, he loves her platonically. And so he basically is like, I have to save her. And so he goes and he basically strangles a full grown bull to death in order to save her. And he does. And then all the people of Rome say you have to save her, yada yada. In the movie, they just send the two of them out into the Colosseum and then release a bull, and the bull just kind of is like huffing and puffing away there. And it's like, and then he has to do the same thing. He has to like stop the bull from charging her. And I remember we both had the exact same reaction, which was, why would the bull charge her?
They're not, so they have her tied up and he's free, and the idea is he's supposed to play defense against the bull. But the bull is released in a completely different part of the arena.
And I mean, these arenas are enormous. This is a hippodrome. If we're gonna be strictly speaking, this is a hippodrome that they have released them into. This would be the equivalent of a NASCAR racetrack. The bull is like a half mile away.
And it just
But I mean, literally, this is what the hippodromes were. This bull is a half mile away. He's nowhere near them. And it's like, why would he bother? This bull has an entire pasture to wander around. And this is just like bad movie doing. And I'm like, I get it. I mean, it probably would have been fairly hard to tie Deborah Kerr to a bull. So they just were not going to do it. But it's hilarious in the sense that it's like, why is this bull bothering to charge this woman? He has an enormous amount of space.
and apparently it was the animal stuff in it was apparently a big problem when they were filming because none of the animals would move. Like the lions would. At one point, they released lions, and the lions eat the Christians, as the cliche goes. And apparently, when they tried to release the lions, the filmmakers, they just wouldn't move. Like, what would,
The best is you can tell that happened because this is one of those great moments where they have the exact same footage play twice of the lions coming. Have you noticed that?
I didn't know.
No, it's the exact same footage. They show the lions come running out, and like 20 minutes later, they show the exact same footage of the lions running out. And I went, ah, man, you didn't get enough footage of lions going up little Roman stairs, did
Yeah, yeah.
you?
Apparently, it was an inordinately hot summer, and so they're like the animals just weren't doing anything. They were just boiling. Um, but yeah, in the movie, then Marcus gets free from captivity, runs down, and then or he doesn't really
Leads a
lead the rebellion.
rebellion. Well, he announces
He
a
announces
rebellion.
the rebellion is now happening, and Galba is going to take over.
Galba, who reigned for like 8 days or
Something
like
like that.
something.
Yeah, he was.
It was longer than that, but it was very short. It was like 9 months or something before he died. This is the year of the four
Yeah,
emperors, so Galba does not do very well.
no. But we never meet Galba, right? I don't think we see him in the
No, no,
movie.
Galba's like
Somewhere else.
Godot here. He's Godot. He's there. He's
We're just
supposedly
not
going to
gonna
show
see
up.
him, yeah. So it's and then they go, but it also invalidates Petronius's.
No,
Who's
he
that?
had no reason to kill himself. No,
Yeah, so Petronius kills himself, and then all this stuff happens, which is a different order from the
within like
book.
a day.
Yeah, within a day he would have been fine. So if he just hung out, it would have been fine. And the whole point why Petronius kills himself is you're supposed to when Nero orders you, but he does it early because then Nero can't get the satisfaction of seeing him die, um, which they mention in the movie. But since Nero dies almost immediately after, there's no. It was just a
There's no reason for
meaningless.
that to have happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a meaningless death. There's no kind of fun gotcha to Nero there.
I mean, the movie is just it's wildly mediocre, right? I mean, it's compared to a book that has a lot of stuff. It doesn't age great because of its earnestness, but it's got a lot of things that we could talk about for enormous amounts of time. And the movie doesn't have that.
Yeah, the movie doesn't have the. This movie has been. They've made a bunch of versions of Quo Vadis. This is the most famous. It's the most well seen. And I don't know. I haven't seen any other versions, but it'd be interesting to touch up on them. Apparently,
No,
Kylo.
it wouldn't. I'm not doing them.
Apparently, Kylo always gets short shrift. They always kick him out of the movies, or they
He's a
give him
great
only one
character.
scene.
He's
Yeah,
he's great. They should have make a Kylo movie. The a Kylo movie would be far more interesting than most of the rest of this stuff. He's the most interesting character in the book. He'd probably be the most interesting character in a movie. They should just make a movie about him. Steven Spielberg or Martin Scorsese, if you're listening, there you go.
yeah. Apparently, Scorsese is producing a bunch of saints' lives
You mentioned that, yeah.
short films, like these little hagiographies. I hope they're worth something. That'll be, I got the impression they're not, but I hope they are. But instead, stop doing that crap and make the
And
Kylo
make
movie.
Kylo movie.
It
You know,
ends
that
with a nice conversion. You're a great filmmaker, and you were in seminary. You could do it. Any other last thoughts on Sienkiewicz?
I'm glad to finally have a good writer, a writer who is worth
Mhm.
winning the prize.
Well, hold on to that feeling because next week, join us when we discuss Frédéric Mistral and his epic poem Miriot.
I
Have you
thought that was
started it?
last week. I thought that was last
Oh
week.
crap! What are we doing next week?
Next week is next. That's why I was like, we're
Kipling.
doing
Oh,
Kipling next. I'm like,
oh,
dude,
Kipling's
we're doing
good.
Kipling. I
Mhm.
was like, we're doing Kipling. You're gonna trash Kipling. We're gonna
Oh,
have
Kipling's
words.
good. Yeah,
No, that's why I said the epic love poem was last week,
the epic. Yeah,
dude.
audience. We're doing some of these out of order, so hence my mistake. Next week, you will hear about Rudyard Kipling and Kim. We will be talking about what you heard last week, Frederick Mistral and his epic poem Miriot. So,
I hate you so much. Why did you
good
do
for you,
this?
bad for us.
Stick around for Kim.
Ah. If you enjoyed Quo Vadis, you may enjoy the 1924 Italian silent film directed by Gabrielino D'Ozio and George Jacobi. The other silent Italian film from
You will not like these movies.
yeah, the other silent Italian film directed by Enrico Guazioni, the 2001 Polish film directed by Jerzy Kalokurowski, Kol
Nope,
yeah,
don't.
directed by Mr. Jersey. The other Italian film, the six-part television miniseries directed by Franco Rossi, and then the other Polish film, a 2002 six-part series based upon the 2001 film. So we have a lot of silence and a lot of miniseries, a lot of Italians and a lot of Poles, if you are interested in Quo Vadis. You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia, Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapt It, wherever fine podcasts are found. Join us next week when we discuss the 1907 Nobel Prize winner Rudyard Kipling and his book, Kim. See you then.
Wow, Talking Studios.
Next week, we'll be discussing the 1907 Nobel Prize winner Rudyard Kipling and his novel, Kim. Pat, who would you hire to direct Kim?
I'm going to give an actual legitimate answer, I think this time, because I actually think it could be an interesting one for him, would be Steven Spielberg. Like especially a younger Steven Spielberg. This has a lot of hallmarks of a Spielberg movie. Like there's a little bit of Kim, there's a little bit of E.T. and Elliot here between Kim and the llama. Like there's a little he's got this I think Spielberg does a good job often of getting sort of kids in extraordinary circumstances. And I think it has that quality to it, and it's an adventure story. Like this is it, at its core, this is a kid's. It's a better version of Treasure Island, kind of thing. Like this is a kid's. This is a child as James Bond. That's sort of what this book is, and I think it could be a really neat opportunity, especially for a younger Spielberg, a less encumbered Spielberg. Spielberg carries too much gravitas now, but I think he could have had a lot of fun with this. I think this would have been a really good for a young Steven Spielberg to have done.
Yeah, it's a really good choice. I was thinking that as well. That wasn't my person, but I was thinking Spielberg would be great for that reason. He's just really, really good with children, and
Yeah,
he's really good at creating something from the perspective of children that isn't condescending to the children, but is still incorporating that sort of sense of wonder that adults lose.
yeah.
So that'd
I
be a
think that'd be a
really
great.
good
He
choice.
really could do it well.
Mhm. I think for me, I would go with, and this is might be kind of an obvious choice, but I'm going to go with it anyway, is Satyajit Ray. I think, yeah, it's a little obvious, but I think
I
that
don't know who that is.
he was the
I did
guy.
you said that. Oh shoot! I have no idea who that person
He's the guy who
is.
directed the Apu trilogy.
I've never seen it.
It's well, most people know the Apu trilogy, because that was the inspiration for the character Apu on The
Oh, on The
Simpsons.
Simpsons. Oh, interesting.
But he was
Did not know that either.
yeah, he was the Apu trilogy was his first. Well, I would say his first three movies, but really he made another movie in between the second and the third one, but whatever. He was a Bengali filmmaker between 1955, I think his last movie was 1992, and he did a lot of movies sort of grounded in the realistic world of lower caste Indian people. Mostly he was interested in kind of Bengali films. He was really inspired by Vittorio De Sica and the kind of neorealist movement. And I think that his sensibility about India and the landscape, even though he's a Bengal, so he's interested in that area of India, not the Calcuttas and those type of circumstances. But I still think the very realistic, very grounded aspect of Kim, he would do well at. He also did a series of detective movies in
No.
Bengal. So I think the a little bit more of the great game aspect he could also incorporate into this world, or into his cinematic language for this world. And so I think Satyajit Ray would be a really, really good choice. Quo Vadis?
It would be Quo Vadis.
Wadis.
Vadis is not how they would have said it, but it's
Mm,
fine. We're not.
Wadis.
We'll go with medieval Latin pronunciation.
Fair enough.
We because Waney Weedy Weeky does not sound the same, but it would have been Waney Weedy Weeky. There would not have been.
It's less intimidating that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm,
Waney Weedy Weeky, and
mm.
we know Veritas.
Just sound like a lisp.
But that's
And
what
we
they
know
didn't
Veritas.
say in Vino Veritas. They said, and we know
And we
Veritas.
know Wawitas.